It's not necessarily in Russia's style to come to the aid of an ally under attack when it looks as though they are not on the winning side.
Hmm.
But if Russia sees a political advantage in actually assisting Iran to stand against the United States and create further trouble for the US and Israel, then they're likely to take it one way or another.
Why has it been so hard for the UK government to stop small boats carrying migrants across the Channel? Well, it could partly be because Russia is backing the smuggling gangs themselves. The Sun today says that Russia is trying to destabilise the UK by helping criminals with fake documents, transport and even military escorts. More than 18,000 people have arrived in small boats this year. Keir Giles is the author of Russia's War on Everybody and What It Means for You, and he joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning, Kate.
Can you explain to people who might be listening to this, hearing it for the first time, really quite shocked by what they're hearing, what is going on here?
Well, first of all, we probably shouldn't say that the reason why the UK has such difficulty with stopping the small boats is because of Russia, because all those difficulties are self-inflicted. Russia just exploits them, as so often when there's a social problem that Russia can use to attack its perceived adversaries, whether the adversaries care about it or not, Russia takes the opportunity. And it's also not a new tactic. Migrant dumping, the way Russia has facilitated the throughput of migrants to try to attack and destabilize other societies, has a long pedigree. In the book you just mentioned, Russia's War on Everybody, written in 2022, I talked about this happening in the last decade. But of course, at that point, it was happening to Russia's neighbors. Russia would move through large numbers of migrants to its northern neighbors, Norway, Finland, and push them across the border because it knows that this causes trouble on the other side. Not just the costs of receiving and housing and feeding migrants and putting them on the welfare bill, but also it stokes up social tensions. And that's one of Russia's key objectives, trying to set us against each other. I'm sure this reporting in The Sun this morning, pointing out a Russian hand behind the arrivals of some of the small boat migrants in the UK, is going to set off a lot of very intense political arguments here in this country. And that's what Russia wants.
And so partly the aim is what? To destabilise governments, because that's what it has done successfully with the previous government and with this government too, and to increase the costs that ministers have to face when it comes to housing people who arrive here in small boats.
That's right. All of these things and more. And we should bear in mind that a lot of these programs that Russia launches are long term. They may not even have a specific immediate objective in mind. But as far as Russia is concerned, the more damage they can do to the countries that stand against them, the better. And that's by any means possible. So all of these different side effects that Russia has from delivering people to a country and in a way that stokes up this discord, this disagreement within society, distrust of institutions and government as well, which is something we see resulting from the small boats crisis in the UK, is all perfectly in line with what Russia actually seeks to want to do. Plus, of course, you have the examples from the Nordic states again, where Russia has pushed people across the border, but infiltrating with them people to actually do harm within those societies afterwards.
I was going to say, is that, should we be concerned about when we're talking about fake documents, for example, these gangs generating fake documents, should we be concerned that Russia is also using this as a route to get people into the country and people who would not necessarily seek to do to be here for good reasons?
It's something we should have been concerned about all along. And the only people who are not concerned are the ones who take the dogmatic position that everybody that arrives in a small boat is automatically saintly and their motivation shouldn't be questioned. That sadly is not the case, as we've seen from the ways in which Russia and Belarus has used the same tactic, for example, against Poland and Lithuania. The problem is Russia looks for ways of doing damage at enormous distance. And this is one of the ways, like cyber attacks, like proxy attacks, that Russia's found of reaching out right across Europe and doing harm far away from its actual neighborhood.
And what can the UK government do to stop it?
Well, as with so many other problems that Russia exploits, if you deal with the problem to start with, the problem goes away. So if the small boats crisis were actually tackled in a realistic manner by any British government, this one or the previous one, Russia loses that avenue to actually harm us. We've seen an example of that, for example, with Finland, which, when faced with the latest wave of migrant dumping, decided finally, actually, no, Russia, we've had enough. We're going to close our border with you altogether. And that's been the case since late 2023. And the problem has, naturally enough, disappeared.
I have to ask you, Keir, while we have you, because you are an expert on Russia, how has what America did in Iran, America's missile attacks on Iranian nuclear development sites, how has that been received in Moscow?
Well, Russia publicly has been staying fairly quiet about this. Obviously, it will be disconcerting for the Kremlin, seeing that the United States is, in fact, willing to take action against one of its key partners. But it doesn't look as though it's going to have a major impact on Russia's war effort in Ukraine. There's been a lot of talk about how Iranian resources and weapon systems might be diverted now away from assisting Russia against Ukraine. But in fact, Russia has already started up its own production of all of these Iranian drones that it sends over in waves to pummel Ukrainian cities every night. So the direct impact is not going to be that much, but of course Russia will be watching very carefully to see how things develop over the next few days.
Yes, the political impact could be more far-reaching. Some people had suggested that Russia might try and come to the aid of the Iranians and help them generate uranium, enriched uranium again. Do you think that that's likely now or unlikely?
It's not necessarily in Russia's style to come to the aid of an ally under attack when it looks as though they are not on the winning side. But if Russia sees a political advantage in actually assisting Iran to stand against the United States and create further trouble for the US and Israel, then they're likely to take it one way or another.
Keir Giles, the author of Russia's War on Everybody and What It Means for You. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
It's funny that, isn't it? Because you don't think about this type of espionage. It's a very specific type of espionage where you find the various weak points and then you just sponsor means of those weak points to be exploited. It's not stealing secrets. It's not sort of classic clandestine activity. It's saying, oh, you have a small boat problem. We'll do our best to make it worse.
Yeah. And it makes sense if you think about it, because it has such a destabilising effect on the political conversation in this country. I mean, it really did cause problems for the Conservatives. It is arguably what is driving, a lot of Labour's policy making when it comes to how they're thinking about the next election, the types of things they need to be doing, the types of conversations they need to be able to shut down. They're talking about ending small boats arrivals, ending hotels. Yeah. We've had a Border Force boss earlier this week saying talking publicly about ending the use of asylum hotels is unrealistic and you cannot deliver it, therefore you will fail. And then voters will see that and they will not vote you back in. And it's interesting that this government is still seeking to replicate that same tone as Rishi Sunak did.
Yeah, because stop the boat, smash the gangs.
And it doesn't work.
It's the same thing. And so it's because Take Back Control worked so well. Even though it didn't necessarily prove to be true. It's an arguable point if you want to have a debate about whether it happened or not. But the point was Take Back Control was seen as a brilliant political slogan. And so they thought, all right, we need 3-word political slogans to win elections. But if they're so far from being deliverable, if they're not arguable, Take Back Control is an arguable point in either direction. Stopping the boats is a fact. Smashing the gangs is a fact. And it's very, very difficult to defend them. We had the MRP poll suggesting that there would be no majority, even via coalition, with the current arrangement of UK politics. Russia would want that, I presume. Russia wants to have an unstable British government.
Yeah, it's a very good point.